Hail and well met, friends, and welcome to YouTube user Sammy Kelch Likes Pirates a Normal Amount. Specifically, a few months ago, I saw this little TV show called Our Flag Means Death, which you do not need to have seen in order to watch this video, but if you haven't, you really, really should. As soon as you finished watching this video, liked, left a comment, and subscribed. Then go watch Our Flag Means Death. For the uninitiated, or the initiated who like hearing about these things multiple times, Our Flag Means Death is essentially a piece of historical comedic fan fiction centered around Stede Bonnet, otherwise known as the Gentleman Pirate.
Hi all!
And his excellent crew of absolute sweet beans aboard his ship, the Revenge. Also, Blackbeard's there. It's also a really thoughtful examination of masculinity in its various guises and what that means, as well as the harms inherent in the pressure to conform to what masculinity is supposed to look like. It's also incredibly, overtly, joyfully queer. Please watch Our Flag Means Death. Anyway, skipping ahead to a scene later in the series, don't worry, no spoilies, Ed, aka Blackbeard, expresses a fondness for yummy lavender soap.
I see you didn't put any of that yummy lavender soap in there.
And here's how my Attention Dungeons Hyperactivity Dragon's magnificent thought train went as soon as it passed Lavender Soap Station. It's tangent time. When I was growing up, my parents had these fancy soaps that were shaped like little seashells that they would put in the powder room specifically when we had company come over. And as soon as the company was done, they would be relegated back into the cupboard and replaced by whatever boring old everyday soap we would normally use, right? My mother did this for years. These fancy little, these mystical, mysterious fancy little soaps that would only get seen by company, you know? But we eventually, I guess at some point she just decided, you know what, forget it, let's just use the soap. Let's just use up the soap. And at long last, we just used the seashell-shaped soap for its intended purposes of hand washing until it was done. But here's the thing. That ornamental soap, like I said, look like little seashells. And you know what else is shaped like seashells? Madeleines, the classic little French tea cake. So I decided to do another one of my unsolicited deep dives to see whether or not I could make some kind of tenuous connection and posit that maybe, just maybe, Stede Bonnet may have enjoyed something similar aboard the Revenge. After all, we know that Stede is a connoisseur of fine things. And we also know that the ship's cook, Roach, knew his way around a cake. Incidentally, his actor is actually also an accomplished baker in real life. I've popped a link to his YouTube channel below where he's got some recipes, and you should definitely check him out. Drop him a follow and tell him I sent you. Anyway, there are multiple different claims as to the history and the inception and the creation of the Madeleine. Though the earliest and also the most repeated that I could find takes us back to the mid-18th century and the sleepy little town of Commercy in France. In this case, the story goes, essentially a maid had to stand in for the local duke's chef at very short notice, and not having the usual sort of vast repertoire of recipes to draw from, she made a recipe for little cakes that apparently her family had been making for ages. The duke and his guests were so taken with these lovely little cakes that he declared that they should henceforth be named after their baker, Madeleine. And I really hope that this story is true because that is so very cute. And indeed, the earliest written recipe that I could find takes us back to 1755, which puts us around about in the ballpark for this story being plausible. Now, this is a couple of decades after Our Flag Means Death takes place, but she did mention that it was an old family recipe, and it's entirely plausible that little cakes of a similar description to this were being made several decades earlier, and it just hadn't made its way into a cookbook yet. I'm gonna say it's plausible. But also, if you've seen Our Flag Means Death, you'll know that, for instance, the character of Oluwande, who I love with my entire heart, is wearing, for instance, a knit cap that is, quite historically plausible, I would say, but he's also wearing Crocs. And believe me, I love this for him. But if David Jenkins wants to tell me off for taking a slight historical liberty here, frankly, he does not have a leg to stand on, and quite right too. Also, David Jenkins, please hire me. Here's the earliest recipe that I could find, as it appears in Les soupers du cour ou l'art de travailler toutes sortes d'aliments, or Suppers of the Court, or the Art of Making All Sorts of Food, by Joseph Menon, circa 1755. Sur un livre de farine, il faut un livre de beurre, 8 œufs blancs et jaunes, 3 cartons de sucre fin, un demi-verre d'eau, un peu de citron vert râpé ou citron confit haché très fin, fleurs d'oranger pralinées, pétrissez tout ensemble et en faites petit gâteau que vous servez glacé de sucre. So, basically, to a pound of flour, add a pound of butter, 8 eggs, white and yolk, 3/4 of a pound of fine sugar, a half glass of water, a little citrus zest or finely chopped candied citrus peel or candied orange blossom. Mix everything together and make into little cakes which you serve iced with sugar, which is such a helpful recipe, wouldn't you say? I love not knowing what the temperatures of things are supposed to be, or indeed what they define as little cakes. Don't worry, I have thoroughly modernized the recipe for our purposes today. I've also shrunk it down significantly so that it makes exactly a dozen Madeleines, because who has 4 Madeleine tins sitting around their kitchen? And even if I did have 4 Madeleine tins, I live in a household of 2. Are my partner and I going to be able to eat 4 dozen Madeleines in the space of 2 days? Yes, but should we? Probably not. In any case, apart from the vagueness of some of the directions, the recipe hasn't changed that much between then and now, though our recipe methods tend to be just a tittle-bittle more precise. For this version of the recipe, you will need plain flour. My flour sack sprung a leak, so the flour now lives in a paper flour sack inside a plastic Ziploc bag. Butter, sugar, eggs, baking powder, a lemon, and dried lavender flowers. You'll also need a Madeleine tin if you want to get that characteristic lovely little seashell shape, but don't worry if you don't have one. You can just use a mini muffin tin or a cupcake tin or whatever. As long as it is sized to fit little cakes, they will be beautiful. First of all, and a testament to how surprisingly easy these cakes are to make, I'm going to take the butter and, friends, I'm going to melt it. I like to add the lavender flowers directly to the butter to give the flavor as much of a chance to infuse through the batter later. Incidentally, if you don't like lavender or you aren't able to get a hold of lavender where you are, you can absolutely use other flavors if you want to. Just leave it out entirely or swap it out for adding a little bit of orange blossom water later on in the recipe. This lovely liquid gold now just needs to be set aside to come down a bit in temperature while we take care of the other ingredients. In the meantime, I'm cracking my 2 eggs into a mixing bowl, and I'm just giving them a little initial whisk to break up the yolks and homogenize the mixture just a little bit. Now I'm going to just rein in my sugar and whisk these together until the mixture becomes nice and frothy. Unlike the 18th century recipe, which gave us zero indication of method anyways, I'm actually going to be adding a little bit of baking powder later on for insurance, so we don't need to worry about hitting ribbon stage or separating our eggs and fluffing our egg whites up to huge proportions for leavening. You certainly can go that route if you want to be maximum historically accurate here, but this recipe produces such foolproof little shells that I honestly wouldn't bother. Also, I really like a recipe that I can just mix together by hand. And if I were beating eggs up to ribbon stage or meringue or whatever, I'm not doing that by hand. I have repetitive strain, okay? No. Next things next, I'm gonna zest in a lemon. What's important here is that we just want the fragrant outer zest and none of the nasty white pith, so the best tools for this would be something like a microplane or citrus rasp if you have one, or even just the finest setting on like one of those pyramid graters, like whatever you got, it's all good. Okay, honestly, one of the best shortcuts to making your kitchen smell absolutely amazing is just straight up zest a lemon. Like, it smells so good in here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Now that I've exhausted the outside of the lemon, I'm just gonna whisk it up to combine. Incidentally, I used the rest of the lemon to make a really really good glass of lemonade. Like, damn, that was good lemonade. Next, I'm adding in my flour. And if you've seen my other baking videos, you'll know that we don't sift flour in this house because sifting is nonsense and you do not need to do it. I'm also adding in my baking powder at this stage, very scientifically measured as you can see here. And then we're whisking everything together until the flour is just fully incorporated. Once I'm happy with the overall smoothness here, it's time to add that melted lavender butter that we set aside earlier. And you'll notice that partway through this stage, I decided that the whisk was no longer fit for purpose and swapped it out for a comedically dainty spoon. A wooden spoon would probably have been a better choice here, but it is my continuous mission in life to make as few dishes as possible, because washing dishes sucks absolute butt. And the less dishes I dirty, the less water used in washing them. Win-win. And just look at this glorious mixture. This is about the consistency that you're looking for at this stage, and it already tastes hecking great. Not that I swiped a bit off the spoon and gave it a little taste. No. Now, this next step is crucial to getting the Madeleine of your dreams, and coincidentally, it's also the easiest. I'm taking the batter and setting it in the fridge to rest and chill for about 30 minutes. Time to go night-night. We're resting the batter in the fridge because that little rest period and a lower temperature is supposedly what helps us achieve that characteristic Madeleine hump. I've seen cooks recommend resting your batter for as long as overnight, or even keeping your tins in the freezer for several hours before you're ready to bake. And I found these to be entirely superfluous. These will hump just fine on their own. Just like I hope our beloved pirates get to.
Oh my God, this is happening. What?
All right, while the batter's resting, I'm going to preheat our oven to 180 degrees fan, and we've got just enough time for a little segment I like to call our Flag Beans Facts. And today, I want to talk to you about soap. Now, to be fair, Ed's yummy lavender soap probably wasn't super bad for you if he ingested a very little bit of it. Disclaimer, don't eat soap. Not unlike today, soaps of the period would have been made by combining an oil or animal fat with an alkaline lye solution, which, when agitated and heated correctly, will emulsify into a mixture that will set solid at room temperature and turn into the sudsy surfactant that has been keeping people, places, and things clean for centuries. Should you eat soap? No! Please do not eat soap. I'm literally showing you how to make cakes instead. Eat cakes. With that being said, back in the 18th century, soap as an ingestible product was not unheard of. Specifically, Castile soap, which was made of olive oil and is still made in the same way today, was considered to be one of the most digestion-friendly of the standard cleansing agents of the time. Seriously, please do not eat soap. In 1777, a Dr. John Leake of the Royal College of Physicians in London published a book entitled Medical Instructions Toward the Prevention and Cure of Chronic and Slow Diseases Peculiar to Women, in which he recommends a little Castile soap dissolved in thin chocolate as a means of pain relief for various ailments, bladder troubles, uterine troubles, tuberculosis. Not gonna lie, I think the chocolate's probably doing the heavy lifting here, but you know what? Sure. Please do not eat soap. Anyway, if you ever want to see me doing a video attempting a semi-historical recreation of actual yummy lavender soap, again, we will not be eating it, do not eat soap, and maybe a deeper dive into the history and practice of soap making, and maybe the 18th century toilette, let me know down in the comments. If you don't want to see me doing a video where I attempt to make soap, don't let me know, because hey, how about I do it anyway? While the oven's preheating, I'm going to brush the Madeleine tin with a little butter. If you're super worried about them sticking, you can give them a little dusting of flour as well if you'd like, but I find simply buttering is enough to get them to pop out with relative ease. And would you look at that? It's time to get our batter out of the fridge. Wakey, wakey, little buddy! You'll see here that the batter has thickened up quite a bit in the intervening 30 minutes, and now it's the right consistency to spoon into my prepared tin. This recipe makes a perfect dozen, so just keep distributing your batter evenly amongst the tins until you've run out, whereupon it's time to pop them into the center of my preheated oven for 10 to 12 minutes, or until they're becoming golden around the edges, and a knife inserted into the center comes out clean. They should look a little something like this. As soon as they're out of the oven, use a sharp knife to trace around the edge of each mold and shimmy them carefully out of the tin. Pop them onto a wire rack to cool straight away. Not leaving them in the tin for too long at this stage is the key to the absolute perfect exterior texture. And just look at the definition on these hot little babies! Check out these humps! This is the kind of height you are looking for. If for some reason your cakes don't hump so much, they'll still be delicious, and honestly, this isn't the bake-off. Nobody's judging you. Enjoy your yummy lavender cakes. If you really want to make these extra fancy, you can take the juice from the lemon that we zested earlier, add some confectioner's sugar to make it into a glaze, drizzle it over the top, give them a little dunk in it, do whatever you want. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think they need it. I don't think they need anything else. Just like my good friend, the fictional version of Edward Teach, they are perfect just the way they are.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh my god, that's so good. I mean, like, I knew it was going to be good, but oh, it's such a pleasant experience. It's, you know, it's light and fluffy and buttery and rich and sweet, and it starts out with that little bit of lemoniness that I added to it, and then you, sort of toward the back, you get this like back note of that beautifully floral lavender. But it's not overpowering, it's not overwhelming, it doesn't taste like eating soap, but it's an incredibly beautiful experience, very sensual experience, I think. Pairs beautifully with a cup of tea. Yeah, I'm really, you need to make these. You need to make these. Make these. Seriously, a plate of these, a nice cup of tea, splash of milk, 7 sugars, you're good. Hell yeah. Be forewarned, I am planning to make a video about tea. Hey, so editing Sammy's note, these are also really nice the next day. Hell yeah. And there you have it. A dozen pretty little yummy lavender cakes with which to romance your pirate lover. Again, please, please do not eat soap. You know, I like to think that Ed, my fictional kindred spirit, my sweet little pirate treasure who absolutely has as much ADHD as I do, would absolutely love the ever-living heck out of these. Did you enjoy the heck out of this video? Why not leave a like? Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Subscribe to see more stuff from me in the future. All that stuff I'm supposed to ask you to do at the end of the video. It really does genuinely help out the channel, so I very much appreciate it. You can also catch me on Twitter and Instagram in between uploads. I'm live on Twitch 3 times a week, and I also have a little Patreon where I post little soft drawings of this, that, and the other. In any case, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you have a splendid day. We're done!